Hi and welcome back to another video of jPlay. I am Marcus and today I want to start a new playthrough, and that's Big Trouble in Little China, the game. I have never played this game before, so for me it's really a learning exercise. Still, I want to try and play through an entire session of it, and yeah, let's see how it goes, but definitely rest assured you will see a lot of errors and some very stupid decisions on my end, and keep in mind it's all in the reflexes. And yeah, that's the huge game board for Big Trouble in Little China. I decided to do a two-player playthrough, so you will see Jack Burton and Wang Chi in action in this one. This is really something I assigned at random, and I was kind of lucky. And in a two-player game, each of the players has one companion each. Jack Burton got Margot here, and she brings one additional die. All of those companions do. And on top of this, she also grants him one additional skill die when doing skill checks later on, and her special ability is something that you can use once per act in theory, and yeah, this allows her to ignore the spawn portion on the Big Trouble card. This can be a big deal, or move threat token back one space. Really powerful. And Wang Chi will have action at his side. He also brings one die, as I mentioned, all of those companions do. And yeah, he brings one additional die for range combat, and his special ability give anyone hero immunity damage for the entire round. Also a huge deal. The standard game is played over 2 acts. There is also the legacy of Lo Pan, a special scenario, something like campaign if I got that correctly, in the deluxe version of the game, but I will stick to the default rules or default mission in this case. And yeah, Act 1 starts here in Chinatown, and whenever either the Big Trouble track is full or the Audacity track is full, pretty much all those tokens would move in here. Then we would flip to Act 2, and depending on which side won the first act, so if Lo Pan won, then yeah, basically the starting conditions on the other side will be slightly more difficult. So really our goal is to move our Audacity marker as quickly as possible to this central space here, which also gives us 10 chi, which is pretty much 10 experience points. All the players start here in the space 1 of the Dragon of the Black Pool. Very thematic here. I also already spawned 3 side quests here. So we have one at Gracie's Pad, one at the Dragon of the Black Pool, and one at the Buddha Shrine. The good thing about this mission here is the mission token is right next to our feet here, so we can start it right away, which is definitely a good thing. Apart from the side quests, we also have the main quest here. We have one for each of the characters. So this is one main quest for Jack Burton. Below that is the main quest for Wang Chi. And we have one boss quest here right now. Those two, so this one on top of it and this one here, are pretty much the available main quests right now. If we complete one of those, the other one will get available right away. In the game, I think there are 2 for each of the main characters. And there, I think, are 3 different boss quests available, and they do have some branching within the quest book, so there is definitely some level of replayability, but there will definitely be a lot of spoilers. The quest book is definitely not too bad, so it really has a lot of different events, but to be honest, it's basically 5 events or 5 decisions per main quest, for example. Sometimes a little bit more than that, sometimes a little bit less. There's always some level of branching, but sooner or later you will definitely work your way through this book here, which is why I will keep this first episode today relatively short, because I want to hear from you if I should spoil you the experience or not. So I think I may be starting one of those main quests, but really only started, maybe go into the second stage or so, but then I will definitely stop and will want to hear from you guys if it's fine for you, if I can continue playing that way, or if I should more or less, let's say, generalize the experience and really only focus on the bare, let's say, values of each of those events here. In most cases, it's a skill check, for example, or a task which you have to complete. And in this case, I can really, blur everything else out, for example, not reading you the flavor text and not really tell you what's going to happen, but really only show you the values. But again, I will leave that to you. So
leave your comment. Let me know how you would to do that. I will count the votes. I will wait 1, 2, 3 days until I continue my playthrough here, and then yeah, we'll really listen to you guys. I will definitely do those side quests here because I think that overall they do not really hurt. There are a lot of side quests available in the game and they really don't have any branching whatsoever. You flip them over, you do something, and then you are pretty much good to go. You know what you have to do. So I think using those side quests is definitely not a spoiler. Jack's main quest for this playthrough is bringing home the bacon, and our reward could be 2 to 5 audacity, and keep in mind we want to have audacity in order to flip to act 2 and gain the benefit from it. And on top of this we also get the reward card, or Jack gets the reward card Pork Chop Express here, and his main quest starts here in space 3 of the back alleys. Also very, very thematic, and that's really something with this game. It's so incredibly thematic. It's really a lot of fun. So if you are a fan of the movie and like myself haven't watched it for, I don't know, 20-30 times or so, then this is really a great experience. The boss quest for today is a dark and stormy night. It can grant us 3 to 4 audacity, which is also pretty impressive to be honest, and any hero could gain Rain's Tiger Claws. And this quest starts here at the Buddha Shrine on space number 1, and there happens to be another side quest available there as well. All of those side quests also spawn a level of boxes here. They are right now face down, and as a free action, characters could move into the space and flip those. Sometimes it's something good, sometimes it's a trap, but you definitely want to get after those because there are really some nice goodies below. And I think that's more or less in respect to preparation. Here are some shop items which I could get in order when I spend some dice. I will explain those mechanics as I go, and I already rolled those fate dice which the characters can use. So here are some basically doubler dice available which I can use on my action board, on my player board, and here are some automatic successes. Those dice also can come with a price, but again I will also explain that as I go. And I already rolled those character dice. So those are the dice that are available for this round. Those are the dice for Jack Burton. Those red dice are all the same. I think they show 2 of each of those symbols: body, mind and spirit. And those are the dice for Wang Chi. So he rolled 3 times the spirit, which is pretty cool because he can trigger the epic ability on the spirit track pretty much twice in this case. So really a relatively good roll for Wang Chi. And now we are pretty much good to go. And the first thing to do is to draw our very first big trouble card, pretty much similar to a Mythos card. But in the very first round, we pretty much ignore everything but the spawning here. And in this case, we would spawn 2 security guards and 1 guardian in space S9. S stands for streets, and S9 is up here. So right now they don't have line of sight, whatnot. They will still move closer to us, but right now they don't pose any immediate danger to us. But that's already the end of our big trouble card. As of round 2, we will really start moving our big trouble track here, and would also, let's say, trigger the effect on each of those big trouble cards. Maybe some more words on our heroes here before we really get into our actions. As I'm playing a 2-player game, each of the heroes starts the game with exactly that many chi, or experience points, to level them up, which is the reason why they're already on level 2 here. And this pretty much means they start the game with 2 of their, let's say, special abilities or special equipment cards. Here I could also decide to flip one of those cards to the epic side instead, but in this case I said, let's better use as many different cards as we can, and then we can start thinking about, let's say, leveling up those cards here. Jack Burton starts the game with a tactical submachine gun, which gives him ranged combat, which is also huge. And during combat, he rolls 1 additional skill dice, and he also gets Jack's knife, which allows him to roll 1 die on all of the combat rolls, which is definitely a good thing. Apart from that, each hero can decide which special ability to start the game with. On the other side, there is a co-op ability, which you can pretty much use throughout the game, but then in normal you have to be whatever in the same space as another hero or in line of sight with another hero. In this case, the special ability is really huge, and It's the main catchphrase. It's all in the reflexes. If Jack would die in combat from strike back damage or from an enemy attack, instead you may flip the special ability token to prevent all damage and immediately deal one hit to the attacking enemy. This can also be a boss, so very, very useful. You can use those special abilities once per act, so pretty much he can die twice and inflict a hit on the enemy, which can be huge. Wang Chi's abilities is Wang Fu here. He gains pretty much one automatic success on combat rolls, which is definitely also very, very helpful. And he gets Wang Xian, which also gives him one additional die during combat. Unfortunately, doesn't have ranged attack yet, which is really a pity because X special or X bonus ability grants him one extra die for ranged combat. So you really have to start giving Wang Chi also the ability to do ranged attacks in order to fully use him. So that's really something I have to keep in mind. But I know that the epic version of Wang Xian is definitely one ranged attack here. Not sure what's on the other side. No, there's not. But if I would flip this to the epic side, I would also gain the ranged ability. Next, we have to decide who goes first in this round. And I think right now it doesn't really matter. They're born in the same space, and maybe I should start with Jack because he could start fighting or so. So yeah, maybe that's a good idea. And we could basically also decide what to be done after flipping this side quest token here. I think let's start with Jack here. As his first action, he will do a free action, and this would mean to trigger that side quest token there, which happens to be the Dragon of the Black Pool side quest here. So let's flip it. Let's zoom in a little bit. And this seems to be a pretty nasty one. Extorting a dragon. You rush to the restaurant as you just found out Uncle Chu was attacked and the Dragon of the Black Pool vandalized. 3 figures fill the doorway you just passed through. It seems the attack was only bait to lure you out. Combat. Spawn 2 Wing Kong Hatchet Man on the Dragon of the Black Pool and 1 Lord of Death on the Dragon of Black Pool 2. Once defeated, we can continue reading, so then we gain our success. We cannot really fail it. Pretty much stays active until we have defeated those guys. So we gain 2 of those Wing Kong Hatchetmen right next to us and 1 Lord of Death on the Dragon of the Black Pool, so pretty much here in the kitchen potion of it. Good thing is it's still our turn, so we can really try to take those out right away. Let's have a look at those minion cards now. Because the problem is, as part of setup, we had to pretty much exchange 2 of the minions to the hard version in a 2-player game. So one of them is unfortunately the Wing Kong Hatchetman, who is now on the hard level. I think the standard level has only 3 health or something like that. I cannot quite remember that, but it's definitely a harder version of those Wing Kong Hatchetmen. The Lords of Death are luckily the standard ones. And yeah, in order to defeat them, we have to inflict at least 4 and 2 hits here. And they only take 1 hit each, and then the miniature is removed. And yeah, our mission is to get rid of those fellas as quickly as we can before they do any damage to us. It's really good that it's basically the first thing on our turn which we could flip here, so I think we should have more than enough opportunities to take them out. At least 2 of them should be possible to defeat. Even though Jack has ranged ability, I think it's better to take out those Wing Kong Hatchetmen first because they do 4 damage, whereas the Lords of Death only inflict 2 damage. So let's get those guys out before we take care of the Lords of Death here. And I think now it's a good time to talk about the awesome dice mechanics of this game, which is really great and a lot of fun. The important piece is that those dice do not relate to the actions per se. They only relate to the row where you can place them. Though they only do matter basically in respect to if you get a standard action or if you get the epic version of the same action. So let's say I want to walk. I can use this die to walk, I could use this die to walk, or I could also use this die to walk. If I would place a die here, I would get the standard version of the walking or movement action, which is pretty much 2 spaces. If I would use the dice on the epic space here, I can use the epic version of the same action, which would allow me to move 3 spaces instead of only 2. And that's pretty much the same for all the other actions as well. You get some additional dice or you get more healing, whatsoever. I will explain those, let's say, exceptions as I go. Right now, we will do a combat action. So I think we want to use at least 2 dice in this point in time. So yeah, why not? So let's use this die. And let's simply use this die here. For each die we assign to a combat check, we gain 1 skill dice. This is one of those. Because I placed one of those on epic space, I can now exchange one of those standard dice to one of those epic dice here, which pretty much show, let's say, higher probability to roll higher. And I think they have 1 less demon symbol, which is always a miss. On top of this, Jack has his tactical submachine gun, which gives him an additional die during a combat check. So in total, I would roll 2 standard dice and 1 of those epic skill dice. One thing to mention on those epic skill dice is that my version came with a misprinted version on all of those epic skill dice. I think there are 6 of them and all of them show the wrong face pretty much. So my version of the game comes with 2 of those demons, but on one of those sides it should be a 3 success phase instead, which is why I painted those on here. The customer support of Everything Epic already replied to me. They're sending out replacement dice right away, but unfortunately they're came not on time, so I have to live with that. Not sure if you are able to see those little 3s here. Maybe I will consider painting some more colorful dots on this side, but when I roll this side here, this is not a miss, this is now 3 successes instead. It's pretty much like the same thing here, but it will show a 3 on the, let's say, repaired version of those dice. So in total, I'm now rolling 3 dice, and the goal is to get 4 or more successes, because that's the hard version of the Wing Kong Hatchet Man. Normally those dice show 1 or 2 successes. Again, my yellow die shows 3 successes, so there is a good chance with 3 dice to roll those successes. And on top of this, I still have those fate dice available to me, and some of those show some automatic successes, which I can use after I've rolled my dice. Before we roll, in the meantime, I decided to paint 3 green dots on that die, and I really hope that this is definitely more visible than those little pencil markings. I will let you know, and I will try to promise not to cheat here. But now let's roll those 3 dice, and again we are looking for 4 or more successes in total. That's only 3, so in theory I could now live with it and take one of those fate die. But keep in mind, I have Jack's knife within. On all combat rolls I can re-roll exactly one of those dice, and I think in this case it may be a good idea to re-roll that epic skill die now. So let's see. Unfortunately that's not good enough. So if I would leave it like it is, I would basically suffer from the strike back ability here, because I didn't hit him and he's in the same space. And this says 2 damage to each hero in this Hatchet Man space. So pretty much 4 damage points in total. So I think in this case, I will definitely take one of those fate dice here that shows an automatic success. Again, this will come with a price, but I will show that at the end of this hero's activation. But for now, I was able to pretty much defeat the first Wing Kong Hatchet Man because I rolled 4 successes here, which means one of those guys is out, and on top of this I now gain 4 chi, so pretty much 4 experience points, and whenever I reach 10 of those I automatically have to level up. The thing is, Jack Burton is still the active player, and he still has 2 more dice to go. So I think in this case he wants to attack again. So again we will use 2 dice, 1 epic dice from the body die and 1 standard dice from the spirit die here. It's pretty much the same thing. So we get 1 epic die here, 1 standard die here, and because of our tactical submachine gun, 1 additional die. But I think in this case Jack will now turn over and target the Lord of Death here in the kitchen, because he has the ranged ability. We still have Wang Chi with us. I think he should be able to take out that Wing Kong Hatchet Man here. So let's focus on this guy as well. And in this case, we only need to get at 2 successes here. Their strike back is definitely lower, so they will only strike back with 1 hit, but only in let's say, heroes that are in the same location as them, because they don't have the ranged ability, and when they are defeated they only grant you 2 chi. But again, this is the standard version of the minion. So let's roll those dice, and okay, those are 4 hits. I could have really gone after the Wing Kong Hatchet Man, but in this case I already made up my mind. So this guy is defeated, which means Jack Burton gains additional 2 chi points. So he pretty much is very close to leveling up to level 3. Awesome. Now he's out of dice. He can also not go for one of those fate dice up there, because you can only ever gain one of those during a turn. So this is pretty much the end of his round for him. But because he used one of those fate dice, he has to place it on this fate track here, and we start at space number 1. But before we place it, we have to roll the fate dice again, and depending on the result we are rolling, something bad could happen. So if you're rolling those symbols here, so pretty much a double body, a double mind, or a double spirit, all is clear. But everything else, we would have to pay the price. And in space 1, that's 3 wounds to all other heroes in this case. So really something that you have to keep in mind and really discuss within the team if you should go for fate dice or not. So let's quickly roll this fate dice, and of course we are not lucky. So we rolled this wild symbol here, which means we have to pay the price, and in space 1 that's 3 wounds to all other heroes. So poor Wang Chi just lost 1, 2, 3 health points, but that's pretty much the end of Jack's activation. Let's move over to Wang Chi, or we are already at Wang Chi's player board. And of course he also wants to get rid of that Wing Kong Hatchet Man as soon as possible. So we also want to do some combat first. So I think let's go with 1, 2 dice here. It's pretty much the same exercise like with Jack. So he gets 1 epic die here, 1 standard skill die here, and on top of this, because of Wang Xian, he also gets 1 additional skill dice. The cool thing now is he has Wang Fu, so he gains 1 auto success on combat rolls, which can really help him. So yeah, let's roll those dice and target the last Wing Kong Hatchet Man. Again, we are looking for 4 or more successes. Awesome job, great job, Wang Chi. Those are 5 successes. Yeah, that's definitely good enough to take out the last remaining Wing Kong Hatchet Man. So Wang also gains 4 chi here, and he still has 2 more action dice to go. And the good thing is he didn't use a fate dice yet. So if he wants to go move on, he can now take a fate dice and, for example, could take 1 of those. And if he uses this for him would be an additional action he could take, for example, moving or resting. So overall, that's really, really great. So he has a lot of options now, and I think he wants to move now. So we will spend 1 of those epic spirit dice here. Epic spirit dice gives you 3 movement points instead of 2. And by the way, there's a handy little overview card what those dice really bring you. In the normal slot, in an epic slot, so you see if your movement, if a normal slot you can move up to 2 spaces, in an epic slot you can move up to 3 spaces, and so on. The free actions are being described to really, really great little help. So let's move Wang Chi 1, 2, 3 spaces here to the black market. We can move through those red spaces here, red lines here. Those red lines block other minions to move through, and they also block line of sight. So I could not shoot out here, for example. Bosses can move between those, but yeah, minions do not. Now, as I'm in the black market, I can use the special task action space here. I don't have to be in the same space as the black market. I just need to be in the so-called zone of the black market. For those quest tokens, it's a little bit different. I really have to be in the space, but in order to trigger those task actions, I only have to be in the zone. And now I can use any die here in order to do shopping. So I could go for a huge buzz, which allows me to evade from a space with enemies. Normally I take 1 wound for each enemy that's in the space which I'm leaving. Or I could go for the Chinese fireworks, which can really do a lot of damage. And I think this is what I will do. So I will use my last remaining die and place it here on my mind track. It's a standard action, but it doesn't really matter in this point in time because I can use any die here. And I think I will go for the Chinese fireworks, which is really great. I can use them whenever I want as a free action. One thing with the free actions though, I still have to have normal dice available. So if I'm out of all of my action dice, I can no longer do free actions during my turn. Really important. So let's grab those Chinese fireworks and place those accordingly onto Wang Chi. In theory, I could go for another fate die now. But again, those always come with a risk. So if I would now roll the pay the price result here, I would lose 5 chi. I only have 4 chi, so I would go down to 0, and any extent I have to pay with health points. So I'm not quite sure if I should do that, because right now we are still doing okay. And one thing I nearly forgot, of course, I should read the success section on the Extorting a Dragon side quest card. Wow, how could I forget that? Success. After dispatching the thugs, you return back to Uncle Chu to help tend to his wounds. We would gain 1 audacity. Awesome. So we are 1 step closer ending the Act 1 in our favor pretty much. So again, it's really important to reach those spaces here, because each of the heroes gains 5G, and here 5G, and the same would be true here. So overall, this could mean 2 additional levels we could level up when getting to those. And also the effects on the other side are also somewhat really worse. Yeah, still I have to think if I want to use a fate die or not, but I think for now I'm doing okay. But one thing to do, we have to reveal our next side quest here, and this starts in space 2 of Egg Fu Young Tours. So we take the side quest token we just completed and placed here on space 2 of Egg Fu Young Tours, and on top of this we also get to spawn a new crate, and this crate goes to Streets 9, which is kind of bad news because of all of those thugs that are currently present here, but they will start moving anytime soon anyway, so I think sooner or later we may be able to get there, but we don't really need to collect all of those crates. Keep in mind, I think 50% of those are traps anyway. Then we come to the enemy phase. The minions will first move, then attack, then the bosses would move, then attack. Right now we don't have any bosses on the board yet. Doesn't really matter which of those minions we start. Let's start with this Guardian here, which has a movement of 3 and a special attack, but right now it will not be able to attack us. When it would attack, it would normally spawn a new minion, but right now we are still doing okay. So let's move the Guardian first. Those guys will always move to the closest hero in the same zone, but right now there aren't any heroes in the same zone, but they would still move as close as possible to a hero. So in this case the Guardian will move, what's close? I think this is the, yeah, 1, 2 and 3, so it's pretty much right next to Jack Burton here. Of course he could still move out down south here. Next would be the security guards. They have a movement of 2. They do have ranged combat or ranged attacks, but let's move them first. So that's 1, 2, 1, 2. That's already the end of the enemy phase, because they cannot attack us, as there is no one in line of sight. Even if this Guardian had now really arranged combat, he cannot shoot or trace line of sight through this red line here. And yeah, that's already the end of round 1. Let's go into round 2, but I think I will just go through the Big Trouble card now, and then I will call it a day for now. So let's get it. And today seems to be payday, because that's what the card says. It's payday. Working for the Godfather of Chinatown has its perks. With their pockets lined, the Wing Kong security guards are looking to let off some steam while getting some R&R. First of all, the Big Trouble track would move 3 spaces, which is really used. I think it's always between 1 and 3, and 3 is definitely a bad start. So that's 1, 2 and 3. They're also kind of good news, because as an effect we would now remove all security guards from street spaces. So yeah, off they go. But then we will spawn 2 Lords of Death and 1 Guardian. By the way, there is a 3-player and 4-player spawning. So if we would have 3 or 4 players, we would gain an additional Wing Kong 6-shooter. And if you would play on 5 to 6 players or with a director's cut rule, we would also spawn an additional Lord of Death to the same space, which is now S18. So let's spawn those guys accordingly. They're all the way here at the right of the game board. So right now definitely very far away. So here are those 2 Lords of Death, and here is another Guardian. So for now we are definitely doing okay. That's pretty much much the Big Trouble card for this round. Next, we would roll all of our action dice again. We would then decide who would be the first player and would start a new round. But I think I will call it a day for now. So we have one more Guardian here. We have one Guardian here, two Lords of Death here, all the way to the right of the board. They can get a problem because, again, Jack's main quest is here. But again, I will leave it up to you how much of a spoilery experience this one should be for you. If you are fine that I read some text for you, I'm totally fine doing this. But if you prefer that I only focus on the pure values of each text and not go into detail of the story, I'm fine too. Just let me know and I will do accordingly. I really hope you enjoyed my very first episode of my playthrough of Big Trouble in Little China, the game. It's really a fun exercise, and to be honest, I lied to you in my introductory video because in the meantime I was able to play that game. I had some friends who really wanted to try it out, so yeah, I basically said let's go for it. And yeah, it was really a blast. We had some questions, so I'm pretty much thankful I did this let's say private playthrough before I do that on camera here, so some of the questions already have been sorted out by Chris, so thanks so much for all of your patience. Hope to see you soon in one of my other videos, and yeah, until then, bye bye.